Hi, I'm Bill Bradley. Join me for a recent excerpt of American Voices. When wounded service members and veterans are back in the U.S. recuperating in a hospital, you might think they're good now. They're safe. But there's a problem. They're alone. Often they have a relative who is halfway across the country, can't afford a plane ticket. The government pays for a very limited number of plane tickets to Walter Reed Hospital, but many parents need to fly back and forth from the hospital to take care of other children at home. When Fletcher Gill heard about this problem, he co-founded Luke's Wings, which sends complimentary plane tickets to wounded service members and their loved ones.
My name is Kenna, and I am a beneficiary of Luke's Wings. I am the wife of a combat wounded veteran. My husband stepped on a bomb the day before our 1-year wedding anniversary, and we ended up at Walter Reed Hospital in Bethesda, Maryland for 4 years while he recovered, 61 surgeries. Luke's Wings stepped in pretty quickly into our story because my 2 little ones were 5 and 7 at the time. So we quickly used up our little bit of savings to go see our children, for me to go back and forth. And so Luke's Wings started flying them up. They saved our Christmas that first year. Eric's leg was the leg he still has. It was too infected for us to leave the hospital. We were going to go and surprise the kids, and the doctors refused to sign off on him leaving. So Luke's Wings flew the kids up and my whole family up on December 23rd so that we could be together for the holidays. And as a mom, that was like the biggest gift, the best gift I could have asked for.
Fletcher Gill is here with me now. Fletcher, welcome to American Voices.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
So how did you first become aware that this was a problem?
I had a very close friend, still a close friend of mine. Her name is Sarah Wingfield. And at the time, in 2007, she was a Redskins cheerleader ambassador. She was asked to go to Walter Reed to meet the troops. About halfway through her trip to Walter Reed, she encountered a young man named Luke Shirley. Now, those 2 names mean a lot to us, Luke Shirley and Sarah Wingfield, because we named our organization Luke's Wings after both of them. Mm-hmm. And she met Luke, and he had lost an arm and a leg serving our country and serving us and keeping us safe. He was going through surgery after surgery. He was heavily medicated, and he was in a very dark place. And Sarah was unable to break contact with him or get his attention. And so she thought, boy, this is really awkward that he won't talk to me and he's very disconnected. And then his mom showed up. His mom walked into the room. And when his mom showed up, Luke woke up. He was awake. He was present. He saw Sarah, and they spent the rest of the day chatting and becoming friends. And that was in the spring of 2007. She told me his story. That story and that experience stuck with her for 6 months. I said, hey, you know what? It's so strange to me that his mom was there as his what? And she said, well, his mom lives there. And I said, no, it's impossible. And she said, no. She explained that parents lived at Walter Reed, that wives and fiancés lived there, that they were having children there because these service members were there for years. And these caregivers, these hidden heroes, were what are called non-medical attendants, or NMAs. And they're literally sitting by your bed every day, and they're changing your bandages, and they're helping you learn how to walk on prosthetics, and they're there when you wake up from your surgeries, and they quit everything in their life. She explained this to me, and I just couldn't believe it. But I said, hey, you know what? You know what would be cool? If we threw a party downtown in Washington, D.C. at the City Tavern Club, and we raised some money, and we went up to Walter Reed, and we introduced ourselves, and we offered some plane tickets to get these moms and these wives to go home, just for a weekend, and get a little bit of respite, sleep in their own beds, check in with the rest of the kids, open the mail, and then we'll bring them back again. And my friend Sarah Wingfield said, can we do that? And I said, yeah, no one can stop us from buying another person a plane ticket. And that's where it all started.
Quite amazing. Was there anything on a personal level in your background that made you connect with this situation?
I come from a long line of family members who served our nation, and it resonated with me that I do something for the military and that we did something for the military, but it also resonated on a more personal level because I lost my father 3 days before 9/11. And I don't know, every time we put somebody on an airplane or we tell a mom, pack a bag and we're going to get you to your son's bedside, I don't know, somehow it just kind of brings my dad back a little bit.
And did you get to sit with him as he was dying?
Well, I came back from New Mexico Military Institute in my junior year of high school because I found out that he was terminally ill. In fact, my family didn't even want to tell me about it. I had to hear it from a girlfriend. And, being in New Mexico in the middle of the desert when your dad is on his deathbed back in Washington, D.C., that's too far away, and I think that's probably the closest parallel I have to what is experienced by these families that we help now. But at the end of the day, I did get home and I did leave New Mexico Military Institute so I could do my senior year at a public school and be closer to my dad. And he did end up passing away some years later, and we thought he was getting better, and then he passed. And to answer your question, no, I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. I didn't get a chance to tell him I loved him or that I was sorry or, all the things you wish you said to a parent, like, I didn't mean it, would have been a good one. But, a lot of the flights we do at Luke's Wings are end-of-life flights. And we do put people together so they can say goodbye to one another. For me, and I think for our staff, that's a really important part of what we do.
So how do you decide who you're going to help and how do you help?
Back in 2008, when we started flying in and out of Walter Reed, it was obvious that they were a wounded warrior. We didn't need to really look at their application or ask a lot of questions. It was a case manager, the Soldier Family Assistance Center, that would reach out and say, hey, we've got another one, and this one's lost 2 legs, and he's in a coma, and he's going to wake up, and I'd really like to have his family there. And we would say, sure, no problem, let's fly the family in. But then over the years, we have expanded out. We not only support wounded warriors still, but we also support what we call wounded, ill, and injured. So if you are injured in a training accident and you're in the hospital, we'll fly your family to you. And if you have an illness, let's say cancer, because you were exposed to burn pits or uranium deposits or jet fuel during your active duty deployment, of course, we're going to fly you as well. We have a gentleman, a hero named Edward Schrank, good friend, and he is now battling cancer for the 8th time. And over the years, it's terrible. It's in his face and it's in his neck. He's an absolutely amazing human being, inspirational in every regard, but 8-time cancer survivor. And we would fly him from Chicago to his cancer treatments down in Texas, and we'd have him home for dinner with his wife every time. And we also support veterans in hospice care. We started that program as a final salute to the greatest generation that ever lived, being our World War II and Korea War veterans. But I'll tell you, Senator, what we find is that a lot of these flight requests for veterans in hospice care are for younger people that were exposed to uranium or burn pits, and they're coming back, or a couple years after their active duty, they have some aggressive cancer that came out of nowhere. And so a lot of our flight requests for veterans in hospice care is actually for very young people. It's a bit of a realization for us. We also support 2 other program lines, one for Special Operations Command. When they call us and they say, we need flights for a special operator, a Navy SEAL, we say, can you tell us about, what happened? And they go, no. And we say, fair enough. That was probably a very off-book mission. And, we're probably the last people to ever hear about it or the details. So no problem. Here's your flights. And we take care of them. And then finally, we do support our fallen officers. We've actually had that program since 2016 when police officers were just sitting in their cars and somebody would run up and attack them and say it was, in the name of their religion. And we thought, well, you know what? If we're fighting extremism overseas and our police officers are fighting it, on the home front here, stateside, why aren't we including them in our mission? And so since 2016, we have included them. Thank God, we have always been able to say yes to every flight that has met one of our program lines in our mission. And I don't know how we've been able to do it. I mean, at times in the early years, I would put it on my personal credit card, and then I would literally go out that same night and I would stand in front of a bar in DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C. and shake a can and ask people to donate. And I'll tell you, people were quite generous back then because, we were at war and people got it. And we would shake that can and we would raise enough money, usually around $350, and we would pay off that flight and we would start over the next day.
But don't you think that when you get a family member, you pay for a family member to come visit their wounded warrior, that actually helps the patient recover?
Yeah, I would say that there's nothing better than the love of family.
You have any stories about that when a family member walked in?
I do. And some of these are pretty hard for me to tell because I lived through them, alongside the families over the years. But we had a 11-year-old boy once who called us on a Thursday, and he said, hi, and he gave us his name, and he called me directly. And he said, my father is in a coma. He was shot by a sniper in Afghanistan, and he is now down in Florida at a place called the James A. Haley Medical Center. And this weekend is Memorial Weekend, and I have a free day on Monday from school, and I'd like you to fly me down to be with my dad and sit by his bedside for 3 days. And sure enough, we flew him. I'll give you another story. We had a service member out at Fort Carson, Colorado, and this was in the middle of winter sometime, and it was snowing. It was a snowstorm. And it was actually a call from a Red Cross volunteer, and they said, hey, we have a wounded warrior here at Fort Carson, and he's just been notified that his father is dying, and his father is in a hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. What can we do? And we said, well, what's the prognosis? What did the doctor say? And the Red Cross volunteer said, well, yeah, he's going to die today. Today's his day. And we said, okay, well, let's see what we can do. Let's at least get this service member from Fort Carson out to Boston as soon as we can. So as luck would have it, I had a volunteer, a young lady named Michelle Yee. God, I'll never forget that name. She was a volunteer at Luke's Wings, and she moved out to Denver. As luck would have it, she had moved to Denver. And I called up Michelle and I said, Michelle, there's a snowstorm and you're in Denver, and I've got a wounded warrior at Fort Carson, Colorado that needs to get to his father in Boston. And hand to God, Michelle Yee drove him from Fort Carson to Denver Airport, and we had him wheels up that morning, and he was wheels down in Boston with his father that afternoon, and they had 3 hours together, and his dad passed away with his son by his bedside.
Wow, what a story. All of you had the sense of urgency that made it happen.
I mean, I got to tell you, every single flight matters. And we've done some 16,000 flights over 16 years. Every Christmas, every Hanukkah, every December, we try to raise $500,000 and book at least 500 more flights leading up to December 25th. And I'll tell you, one of the stories that will always stay with me is a story of a service member who was battling quite a bit, demons and post-traumatic stress. And we got a call one day from a daughter who we had flown before, so we knew the daughter. And she said, hey, I'd love to get out to see my dad again, but this time it's on his birthday. And I figured I would bring his other daughter, who is estranged from a previous relationship. And actually, my dad hasn't seen his other daughter. This was like 15 or 20 years or something, right? And we thought, boy, that's a great idea. Let's fly both of these half-sisters, out there on his birthday and surprise him. No problem. So they went out there, knocked on his door. He opened the door, and he had his daughters with him on his birthday. And a few weeks later, he reached out and he said, "Hey, I just wanted to, take a moment to thank you for bringing my daughters to me. Hey, no problem. That's what we do at Luke's Wings." And he said, "Yeah, I heard the knock on the door, and then I put my pistol back in the drawer of the the cabinet, and I went to the door, and sure enough, those were my daughters, and we had and I was like, I'm like, slow down, go back go back 2 steps. You said the word pistol," and he goes, "Yeah, yeah, I was going to commit suicide on my birthday. I'd planned it, I had
Oh,
it all sorted out." And I just picked my birthday, and it was something that I was, I'd been working towards for a long time. And then I had the gun in my hand, and it was my birthday, and, it was going to be that day. And then I heard the knock on the door, and my daughters walked in, and I completely took my mind off of things, and I haven't looked back yet. I just thought, oh my God,
this
you
kind of
know,
story makes you wonder whether there wasn't something larger at work.
I got to tell you, I think, and to each their own, but I absolutely think there's something larger at work. Over 16 years, we have scraped dollar after dollar to buy flights. And even during COVID, when it was darn near impossible to put somebody on a plane, we figured it out. And even now, when flights are 1,000 or 1,500 or sometimes even more in terms of cost, we figure it out. And somewhere, somehow, I tell you, the world comes together, and we get lucky. And it's like the old saying, the good guys always win. And I gotta believe it's true.
Yeah. So tell me, how do you pay for the flights?
We pay for the flights, usually by robbing liquor stores. No, I'm just kidding. We pay for the flights through a combination of different fundraising efforts. First and foremost, we rely on our corporate sponsors. We rely on donations from other large, companies and corporations. We also raise flights through Delta. We're a partner of Delta Airlines. And if you have Delta miles that are expiring and you're not going to use them, you just log in at Delta's website and go to their Delta Make, like their Wish portal, and you can go ahead and just transfer your miles right over to us, and we collect them and we use them to book more flights.
And how many miles have been transferred? That sounds like an incredibly creative idea.
Oh, it's very creative, and it's really Delta. They went ahead and they created that technology on their website for their Delta members to do that.
I mean, Fletcher, you have so many stories about so many people you've helped, and yet this isn't your full-time job. I mean, you run a real estate company
Yeah,
and you do Luke's Wings on the side. How do you balance the two? I think it's great.
thank you. There's a lot of flowers I bring home to my wife. But anyway, yes, I have a commercial real estate company, and we broker, for the most part, office leases for office tenants in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I really like that work because, especially when I get to work for nonprofits and associations in the city, I help to advance their mission by negotiating a better office lease for them, which would
Sure.
save them millions. And that just feels like, it's good, honest living. But I have that company, and we have about 25 agents working there, and it is a full-time job. Luke's Wings is a full-time job. I got 3 kids. They're 7, 4, and 2. It's a full-time job,
So you have 3 full-time jobs.
I got 3 full-time jobs at the
That's
minimum.
before you get to your wife.
That's right. Or I find a minute for myself, or I tell you, the person in my family who's really making the sacrifice is my beloved dog, who I don't think I've walked him properly in probably 3 years, but he does
Well,
have a nice backyard.
if I had to choose between the dog or flying a service person to a dying family member, wouldn't be a close call for me.
Yeah, me too. And I'll tell you what, I try to explain it to my dog all the time, but he will not tell me it's okay. I don't know. He's really quiet about it.
When it comes to your father, you didn't get a chance to say goodbye to him. And so now you're making sure families have time with their loved ones if they're dying. And has helping other people helped you in your grief about your father and not being there?
Oh, every day. Every time that we say yes to a family, somehow it's therapeutic. It brings my dad back to me a little bit, but it also takes the pain away. I would say this to anybody, friend or friend or foe, that never, ever, ever let somebody slip away without saying goodbye. And always, you never know when it's going to happen. And therefore, like they say, never leave a conversation on a bad note, never go to sleep angry, say I love you more, and, make a point to show people or communicate to them your gratitude and appreciation. It seems almost kind of corny and embarrassing at times, but
No, it's not corny. It's not corny or embarrassing at all. It's kind of one of the secrets of life, and you know it. So I just want to congratulate you. I mean, you may have cut your military career short by changing schools, but you certainly are serving your country, and you're serving families of military service members. I just really salute you, Fletcher, for what you're doing. It's inspirational and it's important.
thank you, sir. I take that as a great honor coming from you, so I appreciate it.
I've been speaking with Fletcher Gill, co-founder of Luke's Wings. To find out more, visit us on Facebook, or while you're there, message me. I love hearing from you. Our Facebook page is American Voices with Senator Bill Bradley, and we're also now on Instagram. You can write me there too. Thank you so much, Fletcher. Keep doing these beautiful things you do.
We will. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to American Voices here on my YouTube channel. For more interviews celebrating the goodness and creativity of the American people, click the subscribe button below.